Alex Ovechkin, the man, the myth, the legend.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other platforms before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called the Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we do a profile of Alex Ovechkin, his history in the National Hockey League, how he currently sits number 2 all-time in goals scored, and just his great history in the NHL. A little bit later, we will talk about the 23-24 season in review, the ups, the downs, about how Alex Ovechkin got off to his slowest start in his career, but turned on the Jets in the second half of the season. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We'll talk about how stick issues may have factored into Alex Ovechkin's slow start and his subsequent great second half of the season. And then in the final segment, we will talk about the diet. Yes, the diet of Alex Ovechkin. It's not often that you see a professional athlete eat a steady diet of Subway sandwiches and flaming hot Cheetos. But just to get it going here, talking about the man, the myth, the legend of Alex Ovechkin. Ovi is considered one of the greatest goal scorers of the 21st century. We know that. Currently sits number 2 all-time in goals scored. Quite an accomplishment. He has set numerous records and achieved remarkable milestones in the NHL. Ovi holds the record for the most 30-goal seasons, and he became the 3rd player in NHL history to score 800 goals. And, you know, the cool thing about Ovi and seeing him do this on a night in and night out basis during the hockey season is that we're getting to see it in our lifetime. It's not some archival footage. If we take a look at Wayne Gretzky already, you take a look back on it, and it looks like it was shot from 50 years ago. We're getting to see a truly dynamic player that will one day be the greatest goal scorer of all time, and we get to see it in our lifetime, in real time. He also holds the record for the most 40-goal seasons in the NHL and has the most empty net goals in NHL history. And oftentimes I think that we overlook some of that, or we forget about what kind of player he is. I think that it's easy to, kind of grasp on to some of the negative things that has happened with Ovi, like his slow start to the 23-24 season. Just the accolades and the accomplishments of Ovi is quite stunning. Ovechkin's career highlights include becoming the 8th member of the NHL's 700 goal club. He has consistently showcased his exceptional skills, scoring ability, and physical presence on the ice. The physical presence isn't quite as noticeable, I guess, as it was in his younger day. He was quite the bull in the china shop. He was a guy that was willing to drop the gloves at any given moment, but he has matured. He is, a guy in his late 30s in the NHL, and ultimately that's what he has Tom Wilson for. Kind of an interesting thing is, though, that when Tom Wilson missed some time this last season, how Ovi kind of realized that, the big physical presence isn't on the ice. He needs to step up and be that. So that's the great thing about Ovi, his scoring ability, his exceptional skills, in his presence on the ice. He is still not afraid of laying out the body and finishing checks into the corner and doing ultimately whatever it takes to make the Capitals competitive. Notably, Ovi's career culminated in a historic moment when he led the Capitals to their first Stanley Cup win in 2018, something that I think was held over him for quite some time. That, Alex Ovechkin, the Capitals, they're a good team, but they're not good enough to win a Stanley Cup. He heard that for the longest time. He heard it from Penguins fans as they held that over the Capitals and Alex Ovechkin. But they finally got over the hump in 2018 as they did the improbable and won a Stanley Cup. He was also honored with the Conn Smythe Trophy as the playoff MVP after leading all players with 15 postseason goals. Throughout his career, Ovi has continued to impress with his remarkable performance and has cemented his legacy as one of the greatest players in NHL history. And I guess if you are a Capitals fan, that's not news to you. But I think that sometimes when you listen to the individual accomplishments, that is what is quite stunning about the history of Alex Ovechkin. But let's take a look here next at the 23-24 season. Quite an up and down season for the Great Eight. And we'll talk a little bit later about why that might be, how actually equipment or sticks more specifically may have factored into his slow start in the 23-24 season. Ovi experienced a decline in his performance, marked by career lows in goals and points during the regular season at 38 years old. And with over 1,400 games played, this dip was unexpected. Ovechkin, known for his consistent performance throughout the season, faced a significant scoring lull in the first half of the season. We remember that. If you are an everydayer of the show, I documented that well. I spoke ad nauseum about the slow start. What was it? Was it Spencer Carberry's systems? What was behind his slow start? Recording a career low of 8 goals in the first 43 games. However, he rebounded in the later half of the season, demonstrating a return to form with 23 goals in the final 36 games. That is what is part of the legend of Alex Ovechkin is to turn it on. When you only scored 8 goals to start the season and ended up with 31 to end the season, that is the man, the myth, the legend personified. The reasons behind the initial decline in performance are unclear. Speculations about injury recovery or adapting to coaching changes have been made. Notably, Ovechkin's ability to score goals independently of specific teammates has been highlighted. And I think that one of the things that Ovi struggled with was the new systems of Spencer Carberry, which I spoke about, but also I think it was about the lack of chemistry with the center that he played with. For years, it was Nick Backstrom, and after that, Evgeny Kuznetsov, that we saw the lines get jumbled. It was Strome, it was McMichael, it was LaPierre, it was Dowd, it was this guy, it was that guy. I think that is one of the things Capitals need to address next season, is to find that center that is going to play with Alex Ovechkin and complement what kind of truly great hockey player he is. Despite the midseason setback, Ovi's overall performance aligned more closely with his career average by the end of the season. He led the Capitals in goals and ranked second in points, emphasizing his enduring value to the team. With 2 years remaining on his contract and requiring only 42 goals, can we believe it? It's come to that. Only 42. It seems like it was, to start the season. Is he going to get it done? Is he going to get it done under this contract? Only 42. It seems like something that is doable under his current contract, something that seemed totally out of the question to start last season. Quite something. So taking a look at it, only 42 goals to break Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal record. The prospect of Ovi achieving this milestone seems inevitable. However, the potential for similar performance lulls in the future, and their impact on both Ovechkin's legacy and the team's competitiveness is a point of consideration. And those are all things to consider, is that Alex Ovechkin has gotten injured more than he has historically. He is the Russian machine that never breaks, but now that he is closing out on his 30s, that things, can kind of go off the rails a little bit. You can get injured. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to recover from those kind of injuries. So, it's going to be interesting. And I think the biggest thing is the competitiveness of the Capitals. Can they rebound from kind of a lackluster season? I know they made it to the playoffs, but not historically of what the Capitals ilk and what they're made of. I think that, again, if Brian McClellan can prioritize finding that right center, and I understand these guys don't grow on trees, but if he can really dig deep and do his due diligence and find that center that is going to complement Alex Ovechkin, then I think he will be in a good position. And I ultimately think it is doable. But I think as Capitals fans, it's important not to concentrate on the Gretzky goal. I think that if the Capitals play great hockey, that will go right along with it. If the Capitals are winning games, we know that Ovi is going to be scoring goals, and I think the rest of it will just fall into line after that. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, we will talk about stick issues with Alex Ovechkin. I must admit, as a guy that doesn't take to the ice too often and play, I don't fully know or understand or grasp the importance of the perfect stick, but that seems to be drawing more into focus that maybe stick issues were behind Alex Ovechkin's slow start. Is that possible, or was it an excuse? I'll discuss straight ahead. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you the can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, talking some Alex Ovechkin, talking some Capitals hockey in June. I wouldn't have it any other way, and I'm so glad you guys are joining me today, talking about the stick issues that Alex Ovechkin faced this last summer. And I must admit, when I first heard the excuse that, Alex Ovechkin is struggling because he can't find the right stick, I said, my, oh my, did the dog eat my homework? I mean, I think I've heard it all here. Why don't we take a little bit more responsibility? I've referenced this before, as I was a drummer in my younger day, played at quite a few shows. And anytime I started, blaming equipment, or I heard bandmates complain about, my amp, or, my in-ears or the monitors weren't quite right, I'm like, you didn't do your homework, or you were too this or too that. When you start blaming equipment, maybe you should put in the extra effort. And initially, that is what I thought about Alex Ovechkin, is that, maybe he was a little out of shape. I heard about that steady diet of pasta that he likes to eat that his wife talked about. I know that he likes to have Coca-Cola in his water bottle, and that he eats a steady diet of junk food in a lot of ways. And I'll talk about that in the closing segment, that to blame his hockey stick, well, I think this is a guy that maybe didn't put in the work last summer. But I think that there's actually a little bit of smoke to this fire, because we saw an about face by Alex Ovechkin in the second half of the season. Alex Ovechkin faced a unique challenge this past year, scoring only 8 goals in the first 43 games of the season. His struggle was compounded by issues with his hockey sticks. We know that he has a long time been affiliated with CCM as they endorsed him, and then he also switched over to Bauer. For a while there, he was trying to find the right twig that was going to get him the production that we're used to as Capitals fans. And again, like in the first segment, I thought it was, something wrong with the coaching. I thought, it could be this. And then I started to hear rumors out there, rumblings that it was his hockey stick. Again, initially I thought that it was an excuse. In a recent interview with Sports Dart RU for Fawn Bay, Ovechkin expressed his frustration with the changes in hockey stick technology. He emphasized the importance of finding a stick with the right flex and stick, which significantly impacts a player's performance. Despite being a free agent, Ovechkin sometimes still does use his CCM gear, but he's also playing with a new stick from an independent company with the iconic 8 logo that we heard him mention shortly after the season was over. I think that, maybe that this is going to be the flagship of this new independent company. I also do know that even Mirshnyshenko has seen great success with this Ovi stick. I guess I'm going to call right now the one that has the 8 logo on it. And what I've read about it and learned about it is that there was a bit of a misunderstanding that Ovi and his people went to CCM and they said, I want a stick that I've always had, but CCM, and a lot of the other companies are trying to always be on the cutting edge of hockey stick technology. And they want to go with a stick that's even lighter than the one that Ovi's accustomed to using. And Ovi's like, hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I want my stick. Do you not know who I am? I am the great 8. I sit number 2 all time in goals, and surprise, surprise, I scored a lot of those goals with your stick, the classic stick. That takes quite a bit of nerve, for lack of a better word, from CCM to say, yeah, I know you're Alex Ovechkin. I know you're the great 8, but we're not going to make your stick anymore. So then there was a struggle there with Ovi as he experimented with different CCM sticks, with a couple different Bauer sticks, trying to find the perfect stick that was going to get him that production. And then he found that independent is right now hockey stick company with the iconic 8 logo, and he saw a tremendous return using that stick. So apparently, despite my thoughts on the whole thing about his equipment, it did seem to factor in quite significantly. And you also look at Ivan Mirshnyshenko and the great return he's got by using that stick. Amidst his difficulties, Ovechkin briefly switched to Bauer Hyperlights before transitioning to a custom stick with that independent company. Despite the challenges, he experienced a resurgence in the latter part of the season, contributing to an impressive goal scoring record. To go from 8 to 31 from the All-Star break to the end of the season is quite stunning. The proof is in the pudding, to use a really old saying. So I think that there is a lot of truth that the stick that he was using, and the one that the comfortable pair of shoes that he wore for so many years were no longer made. Maybe you've ever been in that position where you've bought the same pair of shoes for years and they're like, yeah, sorry, buddy, those are discontinued. And you're like, what? Those are my comfortable shoes. Same thing goes for Alex Ovechkin. I think that he's in a good spot now. I think he's going to be able to hit the ground running in the fall as he has that stick, the independent one with the 8 logo on it, that there's not going to be those struggles that he faced in the beginning part of the last season. And, I think that we're going to see a whole lot more of Alex Ovechkin, what we saw in the second part of last season. That is something to be exciting about. Reflecting on his experience, Ovi highlighted the impact of the All-Star break and the adjustments to his equipment. He expressed optimism about the new sticks and their role in his performance, hinting at forthcoming details and updates. I am quite excited about what that is. Ovi emphasized the importance of finding a comfortable and reliable stick, a sentiment shared by many players across the league. And this is what these guys do for a living. They're professional hockey players. In case you didn't know, they're professional hockey players. And especially Alex Ovechkin. CCM, I don't know what you're thinking. Ultimately, if Alex Ovechkin says that's the kind of stick that I want to, guess what? Find a way to get it done. Get him the stick that he needs so he can perform at peak performance. And guess what? When he's scoring all of those goals and breaks a record, how great would that have been to be with a CCM stick? As it turns out, that's probably not going to be the case. When he scores his record-breaking goal, it will most likely be with from an independent company, maybe something that's owned exclusively by Alex Ovechkin. I guess I don't know where all of this is leading, but quite exciting for me as an OV fan, as a Capitals fan, to see what direction this is going in. The one thing I'm truly happy about is that we can put aside the issues that he had with his equipment, that he's going to be able to hit the ground running in the fall. There'll be no worry about, I got to find this right stick. That will all be in the rear view. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, we will talk about the diet of Alex Ovechkin. It's not often that I talk about food in this show, but it seems to be quite important to the Grade 8. Let's delve into that straight ahead. It's winner take all in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. And I got to be honest with you guys, the team that I wanted to win it all in the NBA, well, they just got eliminated. I'm a fan of the Timberwolves, and the Mavericks took care of them. So, things weren't going the way I wanted to. But to make the game more interesting to me, and maybe say you're watching a Nationals game at home, whatever the case might be, open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on the game. All of a sudden, this game that you don't care too much about is quite exciting. So do that. Go to FanDuel, visit FanDuel.com/locked-on, and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team. Every day, talking Alex Ovechkin in this episode of Locked On Capitals and the diet of Alex Ovechkin. I think that Alex Ovechkin is at the point of his career that he is not too worried about his diet. He knows that he burns a tremendous amount of calories when he's on the ice. In his special on ESPN, I think it was last summer, he talked about that he doesn't worry about his diet. He eats pasta. He eats fast food. During the season, we saw him eat quite frequently a Subway sandwich and flaming hot Cheetos quite often. Almost every time I saw him get on the plane, he had his Subway bag with his flaming hot Cheetos, and that works for him. But does it really? And he also talked about how he hates training. He loathes training. He says, think about it. All season, I'm playing hockey and I'm struggling. And finally, this is my time to rest. And guess who comes ringing on my phone? The trainer saying, come on, Ovi, let's hit the gym. We remember the videos of old where he has a tire chained around his waist and he's running up a hill somewhere in Russia. Tremendous amount of workout and peak condition to get, to do those kind of things. You don't get to in that kind of condition by just doing sit-ups in the living room. You don't get to that kind of production by doing push-ups. I mean, you need quite a trainer, and that's ultimately what Alex Ovechkin has. And it's interesting that a guy that's in peak condition, I've seen the guy, I saw him up close it was called Kettler at the time, a huge dude. I wouldn't want to run into him in a dark alley, if you know what I mean. That this is a guy that's in peak condition. And what we found out lately is it's not just, like a lot of the younger players in the league. I'm eating, chicken. I'm eating a boiled chicken and rice and cauliflower or broccoli, and that's my meal every day. I always wondered how those guys did that. It sounds very bland, but you take a look at Alex Ovechkin, he kind of pushes all that aside. He says, I'm not too worried about my diet. I'm not too worried about training. To be honest with you, I hate training. And that was spoke about in a recent article here as well. Alex Ovechkin has a non-traditional approach to his travel meals, favoring a Subway sub accompanied by those Cheetos. In a recent interview with sports.ru, Alex Ovechkin revealed that he does not adhere to a strict diet during the 82-game season. We know that Coca-Cola in your water bottle, when most of these guys are drinking biofuel or water, He shuns all that and says, I hear all that. Give me my Coca-Cola. Opting for more calories and dietary restrictions. While some players may avoid certain foods, Ovechkin maintains that he eats whatever he desires. And the haters out there might say, well, maybe if he didn't eat all that fast food, he would have been in better shape to start the season. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but it's something to ponder. Regarding the unconventional choice of a Subway sandwich and its impact on his performance, Ovi confidently stated that it does not affect him negatively. And even if we thought it did, he's not going to stop at this point of his career. He doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. If he likes his Subway sandwich, let him eat it. You got to think, is there some sort of endorsement there at the end of the day? Furthermore, he expressed his reluctance towards preparing for the upcoming season and training during the summer, emphasizing his aversion to training regimen before the season commences. Currently back in Moscow, Ovechkin collaborates with Pavel Borlachenko during the offseason for training and has indicated a willingness to make adjustments as he approaches his 20th NHL season. And do you think that's true, or do you think he was just telling the media what they wanted to hear? Hit me up on Twitter at DanCaps218, at Locked On Caps, or on YouTube. Or do you think he was serious about it? Do you think he is going to, realize that he didn't have his best season last season, at least the first half of the season, and maybe he needs to change things? Or do you think he will adhere to his pasta, Coca-Cola, Subway, and Flaming Hot Cheetos? I think that, if you could stick to the Tom Brady diet at this point of your career, I think you would be better served doing that. Save the pasta for after you hang up the skates. I mean, Ovi, the goal record is on the horizon. Why weigh yourself down with a heavy carb diet, with a high calorie soda and Flaming Hot Cheetos? Save that for guys that host podcasts. Anyway, so I think that would be the best thing for Ovi at this point, is to just concentrate on training, do what he's done historically, take a look at how he started his season. We all remember the footage, like I spoke about, with him running up the hill with his trainer, and one of them with this, heavy tire that he's dragging up the hill. We want to see Ovi in peak condition, so there's not that leg to start the season. Again, we talked about that he took care of the stick issue. We talked about that he worked on his diet. Let's get this all, dialed in so he can hit the ground running in the fall. And there's no slow start next season like there was this past season. All right. I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are ultimately what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On's 24/7 streaming channel, available on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app and on YouTube. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.